Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. After my husband broke up with his mistress in anger, his lover splashed sulfuric acid on me and my daughter. She said if my husband loved me and our daughter so much, then he should experience the feeling of losing the people he loved most. This was her revenge on this heartless man. Afterwards, she was sentenced to death. My daughter and I were both disfigured, but the mastermind behind the crime, my husband, remarried and had children with another woman, calmly starting a new life. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn on the day my daughter and I were splashed with acid. When I met Tom again, his face clearly showed disgust as he looked at the terrifying scars on my face. He frowned involuntarily, his expression full of disgust and impatience. How many times have I told you I don't have money? I still have to pay the mortgage, car payments, and tuition for my 2 sons. Where am I going to get money for that girl to have plastic surgery? Besides, her face is so deformed already. What's the point of plastic surgery? It's just a waste of money. The girl Tom was talking about was our daughter. 10 years ago, Tom had an affair behind my back. Soon after, he broke up with his lover under the guise of returning to his family. His mistress flew into a rage and precisely timed the moment to splash acid on my daughter. After splashing sulfuric acid on Lily, Jade drove to my house and poured the rest of the sulfuric acid on me. She splashed and muttered like a madwoman. "Tom, don't you love these 2 the most? Then I will destroy what you cherish most. This is the price you pay for abandoning me." Yes, Tom cheated on me with Jade, and it was also Tom who abandoned her. But she didn't beat Tom up. Instead, she splashed acid on 2 innocent people, my daughter and me. As a result, Jade was sentenced to death. My daughter and I were both disfigured. Because of the disfigurement, I lost my job and had to make a living by collecting scraps with my daughter. After the acid attack incident, the mastermind, Tom, immediately filed for divorce from me, then happily remarried. His new wife and he had 2 sons. Currently, he lives in a high-end residential area, drives a luxury car, and sends his sons to a prestigious elementary school. Every day, his wife carries a different brand name bag. But not only does he refuse to pay child support for me, he doesn't even pay for my daughter's treatment. Over the years, I have spent all my savings to treat my daughter. Although her face is much better than before, her nose and chin are still much uglier than ordinary people, making her extremely self-conscious. To save money for my daughter's plastic surgery, I went to see Tom many times to beg him. I didn't need much, just 100,000. Just 100,000 could erase the deepest scars on my daughter's face. But Tom refused outright. A second before, he had promised his wife to buy her a 2 million bag and promised his son to take him to Europe. Obviously, that amount of money was enough to pay for my daughter's plastic surgery, but he refused. Fused to pay, Tom took out 200 from his crocodile leather wallet. "I can only contribute this much. Take that girl to have a meal. It's like comforting her. After all, I am her father." Looking at the 2 brand new red bills, I smiled. He didn't know that I actually came here today not to ask for money because my daughter didn't need money anymore. Yesterday afternoon, because she couldn't stand other people's ridicule anymore, she jumped from the school's rooftop and died on the spot. "Now she must be in heaven," I said with a cheerful smile. "No need to bother. You take her to dinner yourself then." Before Tom could react, I pulled out a knife from my bag and stabbed it straight into his heart. My daughter was killed by Tom. How could I, as a mother, allow this bad man to live? Well, like his mistress, he should go to hell to atone for his sins to my daughter. After I made sure Tom was dead, I ended my own life in the same way. I don't know how long it took. I suddenly woke up. What came into my eyes was the scene of my room 10 years ago. The paper cranes folded by my daughter when she was young were still hanging on the window, swaying in the wind. The food in the kitchen seemed to have just been prepared, exuding a very refreshing aroma. I couldn't believe it and reached out to touch my cheek. It was still as smooth as before, without the pockmarks after being corroded by sulfuric acid. I realized that I had been reborn. However, before I could be happy, the clock on the wall reflected my horrified face. It was now 4:50 p.m. on September 11, 2014. In 10 minutes, my daughter would be dismissed from school. Then Jade would use the excuse of being a relative to take her away. Jade would splash sulfuric acid on my daughter's face in a remote alley near the school. In my previous life, because tonight's dinner needed to be cooked for a long time, I didn't personally pick up my daughter but asked Tom to pick her up from school. As a result, Tom was accidentally late because he had to work overtime, and Jade took advantage of this loophole. Fortunately, God gave me a chance to come back. In this life, I will never let my daughter follow the same path as in my previous life. I calculated the time and suddenly realized that it would take more than 10 minutes to get from my house to the school. This meant that even if I set off immediately, I might not be able to save my daughter in time. Therefore, while rushing to school, I had to think of another way. My first reaction was to ask the police for help. In my previous life, my daughter was saved by the police. At that time, after my daughter was splashed with sulfuric acid by Jade, she was rescued by passersby and stopped a police car. One police car cleared the way, and another car took my daughter to the hospital. Because she was taken to the hospital in time, my daughter survived the accident. So the only people I could trust now were the police. So I immediately called 911. Immediately afterwards, the call was connected while running towards the school. I briefly told them the truth. Hello, I am May Lily's mother. My daughter is in class 3A of Bright Elementary School. My husband's mistress, Jade, is standing at the school gate with a bottle of sulfuric acid in her hand, saying that she is going to pour it on my daughter. My daughter's school will be dismissed at 5 o'clock. Time is very urgent. Please come and save her. The police didn't ask how I knew, nor did they ask me to prove anything. Instead, they replied immediately, "Okay, we will set off immediately." After speaking, the police hung up. After calling the police, I felt a little more at ease. This was the first step I took to try to save my daughter. I still didn't dare to relax. Although the distance between the police station and the school was only 5 minutes, nothing could guarantee that there would be no accidents on the way. Until the police arrived, my daughter was still in danger, and I had to find someone to protect her at school. Who to find now? My daughter's homeroom teacher? Impossible. This idea only flashed through my mind for a moment. In my previous life, my daughter's acid attack was related to the homeroom teacher. Originally, my daughter could have avoided this tragedy because, fearing human traffickers, the school did not allow anyone other than parents and grandparents to pick up children. Even if outsiders came to pick them up, the school would not allow them to take students. Therefore, under normal circumstances, Jade could not take my daughter out of the school. However, Ms. Rose, my daughter's homeroom teacher, and Jade were good friends when they were in school. Currently, although the two of them were assigned to teach in 2 different schools, they still kept in touch. Ms. Rose knew everything about Jade, including Jade's affair with Tom. Therefore, in my previous life, when Jade came to pick up my daughter, she told Ms. Rose that she wanted to get close to my daughter so that my daughter would accept her as her stepmother sooner. Ms. Rose quickly agreed to let Jade take my daughter away without saying a word. Afterwards, Ms. Rose apologized to me in tears. She said that she was extremely remorseful for agreeing to let Jade pick up my daughter. She did not expect Jade to be so vicious as to splash acid on an 8-year-old girl. But I did not accept this apology. The damage Ms. Rose had caused to my daughter was something she could never repair in her life. Moreover, she only apologized to me in the hope that I would forgive her and give her a chance to return to teaching at school. Because Jade was her good friend, she hastily allowed Jade to take my daughter away. That was a major mistake in her teaching career. Ms. Rose didn't go to jail, so how could anyone dare to let her return to school and continue teaching? What's more, there was a bit of resentment between me and Ms. Rose because my daughter's grades had declined. Ms. Rose scolded her in front of the whole class, saying that my daughter was a poor student who would not pass the college entrance examination and would have to live in poverty for the rest of her life. Moreover, Rose also loudly criticized my daughter for having a vixen face and said she would only be able to be a mistress for others in the future. After school that day, my daughter was very sad, although she tried her best to pretend that nothing had happened. As her mother, I still noticed something was wrong. After many inquiries, my daughter finally told the truth. I was very angry. The next day, I took my daughter to school to ask Rose for an explanation and even made a scene at the department head's office. Rose finally reluctantly apologized to my daughter, but she still didn't seem to really realize her mistake. I even had reason to suspect that Rose did it on purpose. After all, she had known Jade for so many years. How could she not know her best friend's personality? When Jade came to pick up my daughter from school in a rage, didn't Rose smell danger? But she let Jade take my daughter away without any hesitation. Thinking of the reason why Rose did this, I felt more and more disgusted. I had to find someone who could help me protect my daughter temporarily. Who to find now? After thinking for a while, I thought of someone, Mr. Green, the language teacher who my daughter had mentioned was her favorite teacher. Once, when my daughter had a fever in class, it was he who took her to the infirmary and called to inform me. A responsible teacher like this, finding him for help might be the best choice. Now, the most important thing was that Mr. Green was completely unfamiliar with Jade, so he would not favor her like Rose. Thinking of this, I immediately rummaged through my contacts for his phone number. While running, I called Mr. Green. "Hello, who is this?" Mr. Green had not finished speaking when I hurriedly told him my intention. "Mr. Green, are you at school now?" Mr. Green was confused. "I am grading papers in the office." "What's the matter?" Mr. Green was in the office, which meant he was in the same office as Rose. I couldn't help but worry. "Then can you come out to answer the phone? I have something important to ask you to help with related to the safety of my daughter, Lily. Please don't make a noise. I know what I said may be a bit abrupt, but for my daughter, I have to be careful of Rose." Although Mr. Green was a little confused, he still followed my words and walked outside. After a series of footsteps, the other end replied, "I am now standing by the flower bed outside the office. You may speak now." I hurriedly said, "Mr. Green, my husband's mistress has threatened to come to school with a bottle of sulfuric acid to splash on my daughter. Now, can you take my daughter to a safe place to hide? I have already called the police. They will be here soon. You just need to help me protect her until the police arrive. Also, the perpetrator is a close friend of Lily's class teacher, Rose. I hope you will be vigilant. I suspect she may be an accomplice." Rose's accusation was described more seriously, fearing that Mr. Green would not be wary of Rose, leading to unexpected events. Knowing the seriousness of the situation, Mr. Green did not say a word and immediately agreed. "I understand. I will go and pick up Lily now. Wait until the police catch the bad guy, then you call me." Hearing the hurried footsteps on the other end of the phone, I felt a little relieved. My daughter was finally saved. After running to the main road, I called a taxi. I don't know if it was because I was running too fast or because I was too worried, but I seemed to be able to hear my heart thumping. Sitting in the car, I kept praying that the car could go faster and faster. At this moment, a familiar figure suddenly appeared outside the car window. It was my ex-husband, Tom. At this time, he was with a young girl. The girl leaned her head on Tom's shoulder with a shy expression while Tom affectionately stroked her head, his face full of indulgence. The two of them looked like a happy couple. My heart suddenly tightened. Wasn't Tom saying that he was busy working overtime at the company? The so-called overtime was actually dating another woman in the park. Was it because of this that he forgot to pick up his daughter from school, leading to the tragedy that happened to her? My whole body trembled with anger. But I didn't expect that. What shocked me even more was what happened next. The girl raised her head, and I clearly saw her face. It turned out that the person Tom was hugging was none other than his later wife, Ivy. I was stunned. Didn't Tom say that he only met Ivy after divorcing me? Why were they together now? Of course, I was only confused for a moment. After thinking for a while, I finally understood what was going on. At this time, Tom and Jade had been having an affair for 3 years. He had become disgusted with Jade, a married woman, and began to fall in love with Ivy, a young and beautiful intern in their company. Tom had thought about breaking up with Jade, but because he knew her personality well, he was afraid that she would go crazy and take revenge on Ivy if he dared to say break up. So Tom did not say that he had fallen in love with someone else, but only said that he wanted to return to his family and did not want to set a bad example of infidelity for his daughter. Therefore, he had to reluctantly break off contact with Jade in order to protect Ivy. He asked me and my daughter to become the targets. Outside the car, it was still sunny, but my heart felt extremely cold. Tom probably relied on this rhetoric to successfully transfer Jade's hatred from Ivy to my daughter and me. Jade thought that my daughter and I had separated her and Tom, So she frantically wanted revenge to destroy the two people Tom loved most. Jade poured sulfuric acid on my daughter and me. Tom successfully protected the person he truly loved, while my daughter and I were disfigured, and Jade was sentenced to death. After overcoming all obstacles, Tom happily married Ivy and became the ultimate winner. Tom was 100 times more disgusting than I imagined. I took out my phone and took a picture of Tom and Ivy being intimate. This picture might be very useful in the future. When I arrived at the school gate, there were already many people. Passers-by were talking excitedly. I heard that a girl was dumped and wanted to take revenge on society, so she came to splash acid on elementary school students. It seems that this woman is an elementary school teacher. Her daughter is also in elementary school. I don't know how she could do such a thing. Damn it, how can this kind of person be worthy of being a teacher? I didn't dare to hesitate and hurriedly squeezed straight into the crowd, presented my ID to the security guard, and walked into the school. At this time, Jade had been subdued by the police. Her wrists were handcuffed, and her arms were held by two policemen respectively. Her face was completely collapsed. Rose was angrily accusing her. Jade, why did you do this? How could you be so cruel as to want to splash acid on a child? My heart stopped beating. Could it be that my daughter was still hit? The world around me instantly became chaotic. My head was dizzy, and an extreme sense of unease weighed heavily on my chest, making me unable to breathe. Lily! I shouted loudly. My daughter really had an accident. At this moment, an extremely familiar voice sounded from behind me. Mom! I immediately turned my head. I saw my daughter's face was still intact, not like in my dream. There were no terrifying scars, only the innocence of a child. She smiled, let go of Mr. Green's hand, and ran towards me. Cried a lot. It was so good to hold my daughter in my arms again. My heart was still fearful. After checking my daughter over and over again for a long time, I felt relieved when I was sure that she was really not hurt. My daughter smiled brightly, and her chubby hands patted my shoulder to comfort me. Mom, Lily is not injured. Mr. Green took me to the upstairs bathroom to play hide and seek before school dismissal. Aunt Jade and Rose couldn't find me. Mr. Green told me the whole story. After receiving my call, he immediately decided to take Lily out and hide her in the bathroom on another floor to prevent Lily from having psychological trauma. Mr. Green even lied that they were playing hide and seek. Sure enough, not long after Jade entered the school, Rose agreed to her request without saying a word and led her to Lily's classroom, intending to let Jade take my daughter away. But when they arrived, the two of them found that Lily was no longer in the classroom. When they were about to look for Lily elsewhere, the police appeared and directly handcuffed Jade. In this life, I finally saved my daughter. I was extremely grateful for this. At this moment, Rose's angry voice sounded again. Luckily, Lily was not injured. Otherwise, you would have to go to jail. After speaking, Rose pretended to be righteous and advised. Serious consequences were caused. You almost scared Lily. Now Lily's mother is here. You should quickly apologize to her. Oh, was she blind to the law? My daughter's ability to avoid misfortune in this life depended on my foresight, Mr. Green's kindness, and the dedication of the police comrades. What did this have to do with the perpetrator, Jade? Why did Rose think that as long as her best friend apologized, she could avoid going to jail? It was ridiculous. What was even more ridiculous was that Jade actually believed Rose's words. Her dull eyes suddenly lit up like a drowning person grasping at a life-saving straw, eager to seize it. Jade hurriedly knelt down in front of me. I was wrong. Can you forgive me? I was just temporarily confused. After speaking, she looked at Lily in my arms and said quickly, I have a daughter who is also the same age as your daughter. You are so kind-hearted. You certainly don't want my daughter to lose her mother, right? Jade was very clever, knowing how to use her daughter to kidnap morality. She wanted to use her daughter to exchange for my soft-heartedness. Unfortunately, she was wrong. My morality is for good people. I will never show sympathy to those who want to harm my daughter. I sneered. You also have a daughter, but you are willing to splash sulfuric acid on other people's daughters. Jade, when you held the acid to splash on my daughter, why didn't you think about the fact that you also have a daughter? Daughters are not your amulet. After speaking, I glared at her, ignoring all her pleas. The police took us to the police station to make records. After the routine interrogation, they drove all the witnesses out, took Jade to the detention center, and left me alone to answer questions. I temporarily entrusted my daughter to Mr. Green. When it was my turn, the police asked an expected question. How did you know that Jade would splash acid on your daughter, and how could you be sure it was today? As far as we know, you didn't know about Miss Jade's affair with your husband before. Because I have been reborn, of course I wouldn't say that. I didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble. I had a better reason ready. Because today, when I was cleaning up, I accidentally saw Jade's message on my husband's computer. I saw Jade telling him that if he dared to abandon her, she would destroy the most important person to him, making him suffer for the rest of his life. There was also a photo of a bottle of sulfuric acid she shared. I saw both messages. However, it happened in my previous life. After the incident, I looked through the chat history between Tom and Jade and found that their relationship had lasted for half a year. She had warned Tom, "Don't you dare to fool around with me." At that time I went crazy and questioned Tom, asking him why he knew Lily was in danger but didn't tell me about this issue earlier. Tom's explanation was, "I didn't see it at all. There are so many work messages on my phone. How could I read all of them? You see that I didn't reply to her." His reasoning was so perfect that I couldn't argue with it. Not only that, Tom also tried to blame me. "You go out early and come back late every day. You stay at home and can't even take care of your child properly, causing your daughter to become half human, half ghost. Are you worthy of being a mother?" As soon as he finished speaking, my eyes suddenly turned red, and I stared at Tom and cursed, "Are you still human? It's because of your affair that your daughter was implicated like this. What qualifications do you have to criticize me?" Tom smiled coldly. "You are always like this, never looking for reasons in yourself." After speaking, he glanced at the scars on my face and the fat on my stomach with a disgusted look, curling his lips in mockery. When Tom said these words, I hated him very much, but I couldn't do anything. On the one hand, it was because Tom didn't reply. On the other hand, when I learned the news, Jade was already dead. With no evidence, therefore, it was difficult for the police to judge whether he had prior knowledge of this tragedy. Unexpectedly, the loophole that once made me helpless in my previous life now became the perfect excuse for me to cover myself up. The police attached great importance to the testimony I provided and immediately summoned Tom. Tom's expression was still confused when he received the summons. Because he was in a hurry to come here, he didn't even have time to wipe off the lipstick stain on his collar. The policeman frowned and asked, "At around 5 p.m. today, when Lily was splashed with sulfuric acid, where were you at that time?" Originally thinking that Tom would pretend to be ignorant, unexpectedly, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and a trace of regret and heartache appeared in his eyes, which surprised me a little. Tom said with a painful expression, "I was busy working overtime at the company. How is Lily now? Is it serious?" This reaction was really like a father caring about his child. The policeman shook his head. "The little girl is fine, just a little frightened." Tom's expression became more relaxed, but I looked at him mockingly. "Lily had an accident. Isn't it because of you? What are you still pretending for?" Tom looked at me in disbelief, his expression a little annoyed. He immediately retorted, "What kind of childcare are you doing? How could you let that woman have a chance to get close to Lily? Are you a housewife who can't even take care of a child?" The corner of my mouth twitched up. "It seems that no one has told you that the acid attacker is a woman, right? How did you know? Could it be that you and she are accomplices?" Tom's expression suddenly became very embarrassing. He stammered to defend himself. "What nonsense are you talking about? What? I'm just guessing. I'm busy working every day. My mind is in a mess and I just worked overtime, so I misspoke, guessed wrong." Who would believe that? I directly took out the photos I just took in the taxi. In the photos, Tom and Ivy were behaving intimately, like a couple in love. This photo was taken at 4:55 p.m. today. It's clear that you were busy dating an intern in the park, yet you still shamelessly said you were working. Over time, the lie was exposed in front of everyone. Tom's eyes were filled with fear. He hurriedly defended himself, saying, "Who said I was working overtime at the company this afternoon? Ivy and I went out for market research." I dug out another photo. In the photo, the two of them were hugging and kissing inseparably. What kind of research requires kissing? Are you researching each other's saliva? Finally, Tom couldn't bear it anymore. He wanted to hit me. But as soon as he raised his hand, he was stopped by the policeman next to him. The policeman seriously warned him. "Sir, this is the police station. Your behavior is very abnormal. We have reason to suspect that you are also a suspect. Please cooperate with our investigation." Tom couldn't pretend to be stupid anymore and replied indifferently. "What am I suspected of? Lily is my daughter. Would I deliberately harm my own daughter?" The policeman calmly said, "Not necessarily. This is not impossible." The police found the call history between Jade and Tom in the past 6 months. The frequency was extremely high. The last time they talked was at noon today. The police even found screenshots of their conversation. The screenshots were exactly what I just said. The policeman looked into Tom's eyes and asked, "Why did you refuse to pick up your daughter from school despite knowing she was in danger? Or did you suddenly ask for leave today and spend the whole afternoon with someone else? For what purpose, Mr. Tom? Please answer truthfully." The tone contained the unique majesty of a police officer. Tom was quickly defeated under the heavy pressure. He confessed, "Police comrades, I admit that I knew Jade wanted to splash acid, but I didn't know that she wanted to splash acid on my daughter. Everyone understands she said she wanted to destroy my loved ones, so I thought the person she wanted to splash acid on was Ivy. I didn't go to school to pick up my daughter but took Ivy to the park to protect her." A cold light flashed in the policeman's eyes. "Then why didn't you call the police immediately?" Tom smiled bitterly and said, "Call the police? Wouldn't my and Ivy's reputation be ruined? I just wanted to stop Jade and negotiate with her again. At most, I would pay her a sum of money so that she wouldn't disturb my life anymore." Sure enough, Tom was a shameless person. Tom's defense was very perfect, but I still noticed a loophole in his words. "You said that you thought Jade wanted to harm Ivy, but as far as I know, your relationship with Ivy has been kept secret. No one in your circle knows about your relationship, but you told Jade that you broke up with her because you wanted to return to your family and take care of your daughter. Jade thought that the person you loved most was Lily and me. But why would you rather spend the whole afternoon with Ivy than want to call and remind me?" I was completely stunned by my question, and a confused look appeared on his face. He stammered again. "No, it's not because I didn't remember clearly." But I looked at him and smiled deeply. "No, you just wanted to kill me and my daughter." Tom was annoyed. "What nonsense are you talking about? I want to kill my own daughter? How is that possible? No matter how angry you are, don't make up such unfounded things." Okay, although he appeared angry on the surface, his trembling hands under his sleeves betrayed Tom. This made me even more convinced of my guess. I said, "Unfounded? Where is it unfounded? You hold a huge amount of property in your hands. This should have been our joint property, but you didn't want to spend a penny on me and my daughter. So you came up with such a vicious trick to eliminate us." In my previous life, Tom always pretended to be poor in front of me, and even used the custody of Lily to threaten me during the divorce proceedings, causing me to leave home almost empty-handed. But what about Tom? After getting the divorce certificate, he immediately went to a high-end residential area to buy a 200-square-meter house and took Ivy in to live a comfortable life. So I was sure that this beast, Tom, was hiding property. Tom panicked and wanted to deny it, but his poor acting skills couldn't deceive anyone anymore. The police took us to the bank and checked Tom's account transaction history. Sure enough, this investigation found many suspicious points. It turned out that half a month ago, Tom had won the lottery for $20 million. After paying taxes, he received $16 million. In order not to be discovered by me, he had Ivy's name used to buy a house worth $8 million. The remaining money was transferred to Ivy's account after more than 100 small transfers. Tom was generous to a woman he had just met, but calculating to the bottom of his heart to the person who had given birth to his child and stayed with him for 10 years. He lived with another woman in a high-end residential area in the city center, but let me and my daughter live in a cramped old apartment. He even wanted to kill me and my daughter for money. In addition to the bank statement, the police also obtained the chat history between Tom and Ivy. There was a dialogue that made people think deeply. A week ago, Ivy sent a message to Tom. "Tom, when can we get married? I can't hide like this for another day. Tom comforted her. Soon, baby. Almost a week. You try to bear with it. Seeing that the conspiracy was exposed, Tom completely panicked. He hurriedly explained, I only intended to divorce May as soon as possible. I didn't intend to harm anyone. It's all just coincidence. But no one believed him. The police also obtained the chat records between Tom and Jade. Unlike Ivy, recently he and Jade were arguing. It turned out that half a month ago, they had intended to divorce to get together legitimately. But after Jade hurriedly divorced her husband, Tom suddenly changed his mind. A few days ago, Jade sent a photo of her divorce certificate. I excitedly asked Tom, I got the divorce certificate. When will you divorce and marry me? Tom replied, I also want to marry you, but I have to think about my daughter. I can't let her grow up in a single-parent family. After realizing that she had been deceived, Jade loudly cursed Tom. I divorced my husband and abandoned my children for you. Now you tell me that you won't marry me? Are you playing tricks on me? Your daughter is precious, but is my daughter worthy of losing her mother? Tom pretended to be affectionate and apologized to Jade. Sorry, if I were still single, I would marry you right away, but in this world there is no if. I have to be responsible for my daughter, so sorry. After saying this, no matter how crazy Jade became, Tom never replied to her. He just silently posted photos of himself playing with his daughter, shopping, and eating with me on WeChat. He looked very much like a good man who only knew how to worry about his family. In addition, he would also post some articles about fate without destiny and deep love without fate in the middle of the night and secretly delete them after a few minutes. This made Jade think that Tom still loved her, but it was just me and my daughter who were hindering their love. This was blatant instigation. Faced with this mountain of irrefutable evidence, Tom had no chance to defend himself anymore. Inciting others to commit murder, he was charged with intentional homicide and was directly sent to the detention center. What awaited him would be the severe punishment of the law. Just walking out of the police station, I went straight to the lawyer's office. After sending Jade and Tom to the detention center, I shifted my target to Ivy as the beneficiary. She had even received more money than me. What I had to do now was to make Ivy spit out everything she had eaten. After sorting out the evidence fully, I filed a lawsuit in court demanding that Ivy return all the property that Tom had transferred to her. When she received the court summons, Ivy's parents and Tom's parents were both very angry. Tom's mother immediately called me. As soon as she opened her mouth, she blamed me. May, how long do you want to make trouble? First you put my son in jail, and now you want to take Ivy to court? How vicious are you? Ivy is pregnant. She is the only bloodline of our Tom family. What if the child is affected by her mood? Ivy was really pregnant. No wonder she was in such a hurry to urge Tom to marry her. I didn't take it to heart and said, Am I vicious? When your son wanted to kill my daughter and me for a little money, wasn't he vicious? Moreover, how can you be sure that the child in Ivy's belly is from your Tom family? You'd better be careful lest you end up empty-handed. In my previous life, I remembered that Ivy's son did not look like Tom at all. The two did not look like biological father and son at all. This made me think that Tom was just a surrogate father of the child. Sure enough, when I said these words, Ivy she no longer maintained her gentle and docile attitude and began to yell at me. Old hag, what kind of nonsense are you talking about? You are jealous, so you deliberately sow discord between me and Tom, right? No wonder Tom, even if he goes to jail, wants to divorce you. What man can stand a vicious woman like you? Ivy's reaction confirmed the suspicion in my heart. Then she turned to explain to Tom's parents, Uncle and Aunt, she is sowing discord between us. We can't fall into her trap. Otherwise, the more than 10 million will fall into her hands. We must cooperate. Tom's parents felt that Ivy was right and hurriedly threatened me. All the money of the Tom family belongs to my grandson. Don't even think about grabbing a penny. I didn't expect them to believe me. Just wanting to sow seeds of suspicion in their hearts was enough. I didn't argue with her anymore. I just smiled. Okay, let's just wait and see how ridiculous Tom's parents are. Like him, they were all brainless people. For the sake of a grandson who was not of their bloodline, they wanted to kill their own granddaughter. Sure enough, people of the same kind would get together. Before long, the court hearing day arrived. In court, Ivy argued vehemently, "I am pregnant now. This money is child support money that Tom gave me. Even if it is an illegitimate child, he still has the obligation to pay support. Moreover, this money is lottery winnings from a lottery ticket that Tom bought and claimed himself. It has nothing to do with me." With this reasoning, she deserved to lose. My lawyer retorted, "First, legally speaking, only people who are born have human rights, and unborn people do not have the right to demand child support. Second, during the marriage period, wages, bonuses, and investment income are all joint property of the husband and wife. Lottery winnings belong to the joint property of my client and her husband according to law. Third, during the valid marriage, the man unilaterally gifted the joint property of the husband and wife to the defendant. This behavior has seriously damaged the legitimate property rights of the woman and violated public order and good customs. Therefore, the gift is legally invalid. The defendant needs to return everything that Mr. Tom gifted." Ivy angrily said, "Based on what? Do you want me to return all the joint property? So what if it is joint property? My Tom also owns half of it. Can't I return half of it to her?" My lawyer smiled. "The property of husband and wife is joint property, so before divorce, there is no such thing as half of the property belonging to one person. Therefore, the woman has the right to recover all the money that the man gifted to others." In the end, the court upheld my lawyer's request and ruled that Ivy must return all the property to me. Coming out of the court, Ivy was extremely angry and still stood there provoking me. "So what if you win the lawsuit? In Tom's heart there is only me. Wait until he gets out of prison. He will definitely avenge me for this." I left. "Are you talking about that useless man? You'd better worry about yourself." I leaned close to her and whispered, "After all, Jade was only sentenced to a few years for attempted crime. Guess what will happen to you if she knows that Tom hurt her like this because of you? How will she take revenge on you?" On the day Jade and Tom were sentenced, Ivy did not come. The night before, Ivy secretly went to have an abortion behind Tom's parents' backs, and didn't even bother to recover from childbirth before packing up and running away. She was scared. She was afraid that Jade would remember her face after she got out of prison, so she decided to run away early to prevent Tom from finding her. Ivy also left a note for the Tom family, telling them that the child in her belly was not Tom's at all and asked them not to bother her. So the next day, when the court session was held, Tom's father's and mother's eyes were red. Tom also did not see the figure of his love. In his eyes there was a hint of regret. On the other side, Jade's ex-husband and daughter also came. Her daughter, who was about the same age as my daughter, was always crying and calling for her mother. Seeing the scene, Jade finally shed tears. Tom was sentenced to 3 years and Jade was sentenced to 2 years. Although the imprisonment time was not long, it was enough to ruin their careers and lives. After the court pronounced the verdict, Jade knew all of Tom's actions. She looked at Tom with hateful eyes. I believe that after they get out of prison, Tom's life will not be easy. With Jade's personality, Tom will definitely die or be injured in the future. In addition, Lily's former class teacher, M. Rose, also received due punishment. Her teaching certificate was revoked, and she could never return to school as a teacher again. Just because of an irresponsible act, she ruined her career with her own hands. On the contrary, Mr. Green was praised by the school and awarded a certificate of honor for his courageous actions. This certificate directly helped Mr. Green to be honored as an outstanding people's teacher. His future was bright. Public and private were clearly distinguished, and rewards and punishments were clear. This was the best protection for the children in the school. The higher the moral standards of teachers, the safer the students and vice versa. While Tom was serving his sentence, I filed for divorce from him. I let Lily be the owner of the house. The property that he could divide to me was only $3 million in cash, nothing else. At this time, Tom knew the truth about Ivy's escape. After seeing Ivy's betrayal and Jade's extremism, he finally realized that I was the most suitable person to hold hands with for life. So Tom regretted it. He said to me, "May I love you? I don't want a divorce. Can you give me another chance? You don't want Lily to become a child from a single-parent family, do you?" I rolled my eyes. Even if she doesn't have a father, it's better than having a father with a criminal record.
No divorce.
With the remaining $3 million, I can buy insurance for Lily. By then you won't get a penny. Tom could only go crazy in prison, holding on to the divorce. In several meetings, he finally compromised and signed the divorce agreement I won. From then on, I finally escaped from the nightmare of being splashed with acid in my previous life. My daughter and I finally got a peaceful, safe, and wealthy life, living the life that we should have had.